It's time for Who's Who Tonight. Interesting topics, fascinating people. And now, your host of Who's Who Tonight, Mark Bishop.
Tonight's guest was born in Las Vegas, Nevada. He's a former member of the legendary rock band Yes, and has worked with a variety of artists, from Motorhead and Paul Rodgers to Todd Rungren, Air Supply, John Wetton, William Shatner. The list goes on and on. Will you please welcome singer, musician, songwriter, producer, engineer, a man of many talents, Mr. Billy Sherwood. Billy, welcome to the show.
Hi, hello. Thank you for that introduction. That was very kind of you.
Well, when it comes to the music industry, you wear many hats.
I do, and pardon my voice tonight. I'm actually, as you called, I was just doing vocal overdubs at the end of the day here, or the beginning of my day. So my voice is a little bit fried, but I am here.
Well, tell us a little bit about your background, Billy. You grew up in an entertainment family, correct?
Yeah, my father was an entertainer in the 40s, 50s, 60s, big band era stuff. He did a lot of music with big bands, and he actually started as Bing Crosby's guitar player when he was 20 years old or something like that. And so he had an incredible musical background, and he ended up meeting my mother, who was on Broadway doing, Broadway shows. And the two of them united in their love for each other, and they formed a sort of act at the same time called Phyllis and Bobby Sherwood, which my dad eventually took to Las Vegas during the sort of 70s Rat Pack era, and 60s, 70s. And they were a staple there in Las Vegas for many, many years. And so by, growing up in that environment, it was just kind of music.
Right. And your mother was a drummer?
Yes, she taught me how to play. She's a drummer. She still plays. I've got my DW set up here at my home studio, and whenever she comes over, she sits behind there and starts playing. She's she's good.
So your mom is still playing drums?
Yeah, it's funny.
And your brother is a musician as well?
Yes, my brother Mike is an amazing composer and keyboard player, singer. He's actually just now, he left me a message a couple of days ago that he's in studio with Toto. They're recording one of his songs.
Did you take any formal training at all?
No, I just kind of picked up what I picked up as life handed it to me, and it was not a plan, but I started playing drums because I was interested, and my mom helped me get the foundation of that together, and then I started jamming the Yes records and the ELP records and Weather Report stuff, and just playing a lot of drums. And then as things progressed, I moved to LA, and the first band I was in, Logic, was kind of looking for a bass player, and the guitar player from Logic, Jimmy Hahn, who was eventually in Surga and other projects I've had, he suggested, why don't you just start playing bass? So I went and bought a bass and started playing stuff to Yes and Genesis and Gentle Giant, and got my chops through that stuff, and just kind of evolved, eventually grabbing a guitar in the 80s and wanting to kind of start writing songs and getting more deeper into composition, playing keyboards a bit. So it's sort of all just naturally flowed one to the other, but no formal training inside there. It was all kind of by ear and just being around people who were always playing music.
Now, the first band that you formed was Logic.
Yes.
And for what I understand, a couple of the members of the band Toto supported you guys?
Steve Porcaro and David Page from Toto saw our band in the 80s and believed in us enough to support it for quite a long time. And finally we got a deal on A&M Records, and a very important record to have made and to get going on my path, that's for sure.
Then after your band Logic, you formed another band, World Trade.
Yeah, Logic did its thing, and we got our record out, and, like any first kind of endeavor into this business, you think that's it, we got it, we're good, we're golden. And, at the end of the day, it didn't happen for Logic, unfortunately. And so when that band broke up, I wasn't sure what I was really doing, because just spent 7 years of my life kind of trying to get Logic going, And so I accidentally ran into a friend, Bruce Gowdy, and he said, "What are you up to?" I said, "I just broke up with Logic." He said, "I just broke up with my band. I've got some tracks. Do you want to come over and have a listen?" And I went over there, and he played me what was the Revolution song, its composition. And he said, "I don't have any melodies or lyrics. What do you think?" And I said, "Oh, God, I could hear tons of stuff over that." So we started writing that evening, and a few days later, we had 4 songs that ended up launching the band and getting it a record deal and a big publishing deal and the whole 9 yards. So it was quite a magical time and place to be with Bruce doing that stuff. So.
Now, Billy, how did you end up getting involved with the legendary rock band Yes?
Well, they heard World Trade. They heard the demos from World Trade because Derek Shulman, who signed World Trade at Polydor, left Polydor after our record had just come out, and Derek really believed in World Trade and really was a fan of what we were doing, and that was a great thing to have that kind of support from a guy like that. I mean, he was the lead singer of Gentle Giant. Forget the record company stuff. For me, that was what was the the certification. And so I guess he remembered World Trade. He left to go become the president of Atco Records, where he had Yes without John Anderson at the time. John was doing Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe.
Correct.
And Atco had signed the band Yes, which was Chris at the time, and Alan and Steve and Trevor. And they wanted me to be the lead singer. And so they were looking for lead singers, I should say, and Derek kind of suggested very strongly that they consider me. And one thing led to another, and I met Chris, and, we just got along as fast friends, and just kind of from that point on, the rest sort of goes forward, but that was the initial point of contact.
Now, I understand that Yes was one of the most influential bands for you at the time.
Forget one of, it was the all-time, it was my favorite band, I mean, that was the band for me. You couldn't convince me back then to listen to much else. I mean, I expanded my horizons after I grew out of that phase of being a teenager and just devoted to it like that, but for a while, that's all I wanted to listen to. And yeah, so it was definitely a magical meeting, and it was funny because Bruce Gowdy from World Trade, we were on the phone one day, and he's a prankster, constantly calling me with unique voices. He was Henry Kissinger one day, and this guy the next day. So I got a call, and the voice said, "Hi, it's Chris Squire from Yes." And I said, "Bruce, I'm getting really tired of these pranks." And Chris goes, "Pardon me?" I said, "Oh my God, are you really Chris Squire?" And we kind of, had a chuckle and went on from there.
Now, Yes being your primary influential band, you had to have had a moment where you stood back and said, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah, and I mean, at the time I was a lot younger, and it was still fresh in my mind how great Yes was for what my influences were and what I wanted to do. But it was definitely like, I was in a very happy place to be working with those guys, and it was a dream sort of state there for a while.
Was there an intimidation factor there? I mean, these guys, they're your heroes, and now you're working with them?
No, I was never really intimidated by it because kind of they sought me out to work with them, and I thought, well, at that point I better sort of, I guess now we're in this in a different way, and so I just came with what I came with, and one of the first things Chris and I wrote together was The More We Live, and I think that song, in Yes history is a nice little place to be there. That's a cool tune, and I just knew from that first meeting that it was like, the intimidation factor was gone because we had bonded on a different level that was like all of a sudden we're kind of making this music together, and it just became a real natural sort of, friendly relationship. I almost felt like I knew them all very well before I knew them because I knew their history so well.
Right.
So, yeah.
How did you actually get into the engineering and the production part of your talents?
Well, during the World Trade phase, I was constantly looking over the shoulders of the engineers and had my hands on the console and was involved with things and how I, started forming opinions of how I wanted things to sound, and after a while of sort of voicing that and feeding through an engineer to get to that point, I just kind of grabbed the knobs myself and started doing it. And I found that I could do it. And, I also had, I'm very opinionated about the things that I work on and how I work on them. And that's, part of the production thing is being able to see that vision and hold on to it in the midst of the chaos that leads you to the end. So I sort of had a natural feel for arranging it and how I wanted things to be. And so those two worlds combined with being able to produce and engineer sort of led me on the path that I'm on now, which is, and have been for a long time now, which is just, kind of making records as the producer-engineer guy, So it was a process really of the creative flow of wanting the music that I was working on to be represented in a way that I'm hearing it in my head.
Now, because you do so much between writing and playing, singing, producing, engineering, do you ever find that this whole process becomes tedious?
No, because I love music and I love working on it, and I'm blessed that I've had so many amazing opportunities to make unique records with so many different people. There's a lot of guys in bands who make their band record, and that's that. I mean, I've been able to take this thing that I do and move it into a position where I've been fortunate enough to make records with some amazing musicians, and so that I'm always happy about it. And I love playing on people's stuff. I'm always on Facebook telling people, don't be shy. What do you need? Let me know. So I've ended up playing on a bunch of people's records out there, and just being parts of different projects in different ways. Sometimes they want me to mix things, and sometimes I'm just playing guitar. I just did a guitar session for Paul Giamotto, who he's got these tracks that are killer with Jerry Marotta and Tony Levin on it, and I just played the guitars on there. So I'm really happy about that because it's one of my favorite rhythm sections.
Yeah.
It's, I'm always excited about working on what's coming next, and I never really know what's coming next. That's what keeps it sort of fresh. One day I'm grabbing a bass, next day I'm playing drums on people's stuff, or singing like I am today, and.
Now, is there a part of the process that you enjoy the most?
I don't really have a separation of any kind of division of what I do. It's sort of all one big thing, and I love doing it all. I mean, I'm quite happy to work with other people who have producers and engineers in place, and I'm just acting as a session guy, and keeping it in that kind of area. And then there's other times where I'm also happy to be asked, listen, we want you to mix this and do your thing. Just play us what you think, kind of thing. So I'm happy with all those facets, and it keeps, like I said, it keeps it interesting,
And I would tend to think your versatility keeps you rather busy.
Yeah, I managed to stay busy, knock on wood. It's not an easy business to remain kind of moving forward in. But, it's like a blessing to work with so many amazing people. And I've got a kind of a sound and a style that people understand and know. I don't have to explain it. So if they want that, they know where to come. And it kind of tends to work itself out that way. Finished Dale Bozio's solo album, which was a great time. Just her and I. I played everything on there, the drums, the bass, the whole thing. We wrote it. I wrote it. She wrote some tunes with me, and we did a couple covers, and it just was a really cool experience. I enjoy working with bands where you're kind of dealing with the politics of that band, and you're sort of involved with it, and then it's also kind of cool to just be one-on-one with people, too.
Now, Billy, you've produced multiple tribute projects with many big artists. Do you seek them out to work on these recordings, or do they come to you?
It's kind of a combination of sorts where, I do a lot of records for this company called Cleopatra, and, we get together and talk about things, and sometimes we come up with ideas together. Sometimes they just call me out of the blue. Hey, what do you think? Do you want to do Dale Bozio's record? They connect the dots. Brian Pereira, who runs that label, is a friend of mine, and he's kind of always thinking of me for things. And one of the more recent things, besides Dale, which was the last record I did for them, but was William Shatner's record right before that. They called me and said, do you want to do William Shatner's record with a bunch of great guests? And I said, yeah, I'm in. Let's go. So it does sort of come to me because people, like I said, they know what I can do. So when they're looking to get that type of thing done, it kind of comes.
Well, the thing I have to ask is, how do you manage it all? I mean, you're inside the studio doing all that good stuff, and then next thing you know, you're out on stage playing live.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm a quick study to play live, that's for sure. So, and I love playing live anytime that I've got an opportunity to do that. I'm always interested in that. And, to that end, we recently just did the entire William Shatner record that I produced. We played it in its entirety, 3 shows out here in L.A. that were sold out, and now Shatner wants to do more, and so he's talking to his agent, so we'll probably do more of that. And I have the opportunity to sub for the bass player in Alan Parsons' band for 3 shows, which was a great time. And I did 1 show with Eddie Jobson last year playing UK music and Roxy music stuff. And I mean, it really just, for me, it's an extension of just taking what I do and putting it on a stage for a minute and then coming back home, And whether that's guitar or bass or whatever the case may be, I'm happy to do it because I love to switch it up and change it out and play live and then come back home. It's cool.
Well, it must be nice to have that freedom of what you want to do in your career.
Well, it comes down to the music still, which is that's what I'm all about. I love music and making music and playing music in whatever capacity,
Now, recently, you just produced William Shatner's new CD, Ponder the Mystery. How did you guys ever get together?
Well, that label asked me to do it, and as soon as they did, I said, yeah, I'm in. When do we meet? So we actually had a meeting with myself and the label president and Bill at his office, and, the moment I met Shatner, man, he just made me feel like I was part of his family, and he was just incredibly warm and very sweet, and he's a fun guy to be around. And so we sat at that table on the first meeting and said, well, what kind of record are we going to make? And, the label was really wanting to do a progressive type of record in a style that kind of I'm used to, and Bill was into that too. And then we talked about guest artists and who would be on it. And then we got to the concept, and Bill brainstormed this concept of the whole thing in one sitting. And from there, we just went forward. I took, a couple of meetings with Bill to check out his lyrics. He wrote all the words on the entire record. And I used his lyrics to sort of bounce off of to create what I thought the right settings would be for that type of statement. And, just we got into composition and started moving forward, and it just went really quickly. It was great.
And the cool thing was I got to follow this whole process on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly right. I like to post just to keep people aware of what's going on,
Hey, Billy, is there a way we can play a cut off of Shatner's CD?
Please. Yeah, pick one and go for it. Title track is a cool one, and there's a video out there, actually, that we made for that as well.
All right, the title track it is, Ponder the Mystery. Now, Billy, are you playing all the instruments on this cut?
Pretty much everything except for the guitar solos, which is Steve Vai. I'm playing the lead guitar.
Okay. From his new CD entitled Ponder the Mystery, here's the title track featuring Billy Sherwood with Steve Vai on lead guitar. Here's William Shatner with Ponder the Mystery.
The stiff neck of arrogance and the bent bow of humility. Pondering the mystery, pondering the mystery. Peace in the world and the war of anxiety. Pondering the mystery. There is the moon, there is the stars, and the darkness of the sea. Peace in the world and the war of anxiety. The miracle of love and hate's depravity. Ponder the mystery. Death's finality and life's absurdity. Ponder the mystery. A child's love and man's cruelty. Ponder the mystery.
The confusion of faith and the logic of clarity, the tranquility of summer and winter's ferocity, the harshness of reality and the luxury of fantasy, the details of the devil and angelic purity, the miracle of passion and the hate of depravity. Ponder the mystery.
Wondering the mystery, the child's love and man's cruelty.
Ponder the mystery.
There is the moon, there is the stars, and the darkness of the sea. Peace in the world and the war of anxiety.
The lesson of losing and the tension of victory. The drums of war and peace's harmony. The deadliness of cynicism and the innocence of purity. The uselessness of envy. The heaven of celibacy. The crudeness of pride and the pallidness of humility. The solitude of selfishness and the community of generosity. The bewilderment of luxury and the misery of poverty. Ponder the mystery.
That was William Shatner with Ponder the Mystery. Now, Billy, you've been doing live performances with William Shatner with your band Circa, featuring you and Tony Kaye from Yes. Tell us about the group.
Yeah. We formed Circa in 2006. It started with myself, Tony, getting the music and the sort of vision of where we wanted to go, and then we brought in Alan White, who was involved with the first record, and Jimmy Hahn played guitar on the first record. And then, like all bands, there's lineup changes. The next record had Jay Shellen on drums, and me and Tony and Jimmy. And then Jay split, and he's been doing a ton of great work with John Payne from John Payne's Asia, so he got busy doing that stuff, and then I played drums on the next record, and we kept going, and then came time to sort of do some live gigs here recently, and we decided that, Tony and I had a conversation. We actually did a two-man show in Japan, just he and I, where I played guitar, he played keys, and I produced some backing tracks that we played too. That went really well, and on our way home, Tony said, man, you should just be the lead guitar player in Circa. Find someone to play bass. And so that became the next plan, and we got Rick Tierney, who's an amazing bass player, to play in the band, and Scott Connor, who's an amazing drummer. So now we have this lineup with the four of us that we actually have a live album out that we recorded. It's called Here, There, and Everywhere. And we're talking about making another studio record this year. It's a band that Tony and I are sort of started and want to remain doing, and so even though it's gone through lineup changes, we just keep on going forward with it. But this current lineup that we have is really good, and we've played gigs live, and the band's smoking, and they're fun guys to be around, and they want to keep going, so they want to stay. So they're staying, and off we go. We're going to make another record this year.
Is it difficult to balance the time in the studio and then going out and actually doing a live performance?
No, because you could schedule everything, and I sort of make my own schedule, so I can if I'm about to start something, it can wait 3 weeks till I get back, or whatever the case may be. Obviously, once you book shows, you have to do it far in advance. So no matter what, come hell or high water, those days are now blacked out, and you got to work around it. So you just sort of make it happen, but it's not terribly complex to do that. How I do what I do.
Now, Billy, you have some current projects going on right now, correct?
Right now, I'm in there singing some sketch vocals, which are going to be replaced by Michael Aston, who's the lead singer and the main dude in Gene Loves Jezebel.
Yeah, those guys were an alternative band from the 80s and early 90s, correct?
Yeah, and they're on that label Cleopatra. They called me and said, "Do you want to work with Michael and get this thing going?" So we're literally just beginning. I'm only days into the writing, and we're going along our way here, but it's going to be a cool record, and I'm working on that. I'm working with a band called Days Between Stations. I produced their last record that had Rick Wakeman and Tony Levin and Colin Moulding from XTC, and was actually one of the last Peter Banks solos that we have to enjoy here. We lost Peter there. And working with Paul D'Amato on his record, and just, all kinds of various stuff, just lots of different stuff.
And I'm looking at the list of all the classic artists that you worked with, icons, and we're talking about Rick Derringer, Edgar Winter, Todd Rungren, Albert Lee, Keith Emerson, Rick Wakeman. The list goes on and on. It's like a rock and roll fantasy camp.
Well, you become friends, and even if it's over the net, I mean, it's interesting how things go, and you strike up relationships, whether in person or over the net. I mean, for instance, John Wetton had been on several of the tribute records that I produced, and along the way, we'd only known each other over the email. I mean, he's in England and I'm in LA, but we were friendly and bantering back and forth and talking about music and this and that. And one day I said to him in an email, "Man, I'd love to write some tunes with you." And he emailed me back and said, "You know what? I got an idea." And we ended up making his solo album in my studio. He came to me, and we worked for 29 days, 30 days, and we ended up with the Raised in Captivity record, which is a very cool record.
Yeah, and I'm a big John Wetton fan.
Me too. I mean, I'm a huge John Wetton fan. It's just interesting how it works itself out, where you become friends with all these guys. I've got great relationships with all these people, whether it's on a working relationship or an actual, let's go out and grab a bite kind of level, and it kind of brings it back down to the music and being musicians and what it's really all about, everything like that. So it's very cool. I mean, I'm always excited to wonder what's around the corner and who's going to be involved with it. It usually ends up being a cool project with a lot of cool people. So,
well, it seems like this is what you were born to do.
Well, it's definitely something my head was into that era of music and that genre, and I mean, I've expanded out of it a bit where, I did a Doors tribute where, Elliot Easton from the Cars played on it. We're friends as well, and, that's outside the prog genre, and, and you end up meeting and working with people that kind of expand your horizons in what you're really working on and which directions you can go. So it's cool.
It's like you're the chemist putting it all together.
6 degrees of my studio.
So are you guys taking to the road anytime soon?
We're talking about stuff with Shatner right now. It's early, so I don't have any dates locked in, but, what I've discovered about Bill is that what he wants to do, he does. So, he wanted to do those 3 shows out here in LA, in October, November, whenever that was, and we did it. And he now wants to get it on to do some more shows coming up in the summer. So I would imagine we'll be seeing something soon where we've got some opportunity to get out there. And hopefully, Circa can get some gigs here, there, and everywhere, and we'll see what happens. But at the moment, those are the 2 that I'm looking at as far as like possibly leaving the studio and backing up a live rig.
So any possible dates on the East Coast?
It's always possible, and Shatner's reach is far, so I wouldn't be surprised if we end up out there.
Yeah, I'm sure Bill gets carte blanche everywhere he goes.
Oh yeah, he's a star, man. But he's also just a real down-to-earth guy. I mean, he called me just the other day to invite me to Super Bowl Sunday to come to his pad and watch the game on what he calls a TV. I call it a wall. Entire wall of his house is this gigantic screen. I mean, every time I go over there, I just beg him, can I bring my Battlefield 4 over here and plug it in.
Yeah, that must be pretty cool working with William Shatner.
He's awesome, and we have a great relationship. He's just a sweet, loving dude, and incredibly creative, as we all know, and artistic, and it just flows through him, and he's just a real gentle guy, from my experience.
Yeah, and the cool thing is I have a lot of friends that are Trekkies. So.
About 6 months ago, and said, listen, I'm going to Vegas, and I'm going to do the Star Trek convention. I want you to come. I said, cool, I'll come check it out. And he goes, well, no, I don't mean check it out. I mean, I want you to get on stage with me, and let's talk about the record. I said, really? So I went to the convention and got up there for a moment or two with him, and we talked about the record. But it was another one of those surreal moments where it was like, wow, I'm not only at the Star Trek convention, but I'm hanging with the captain. It doesn't get any better. I live about 15 minutes from where he fought the Gorn.
So, Bill, you have a website, correct?
Yeah, we're actually, the website's a little bit under construction right now. We're working on it right now to update things because there's always stuff going on. But you can find me there. You could always, I'm very active on my Facebook page, which is, available for anybody to come by. And unfortunately, it's one of those pages where they max you out at 5,000, sort of maxed out.
Right.
So people request a friend, and unfortunately I can't accommodate because of Facebook. You can always send me a message there and post on there. I'm reachable through Facebook.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Billy Sherwood.
Thanks for having me.
Please visit Billy on his Facebook page or visit his website, billysherwood.com. For Who's Who Tonight, I'm Mark Bishop. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Who's Who Tonight with Mark Bishop. Visit us on YouTube and on Facebook, or go to our website, who'swhotonight.com.